Hey everybody, welcome to Artist Soapbox. Artist Soapbox is a podcast featuring Triangle area artists talking about their work, their plans, their manifestos. I am your host, Tamara Kassane. This is an Artist Soapbox snackable, a bite-sized piece of a longer podcast episode. If you'd like to hear the entire conversation with Dan Sipp about improv, including the Medical Improv Initiative, just follow the link to episode 32 at artistsoapbox.org. One of your goals is to legitimize improv.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, I think that improv has a lot of trouble being legitimate. I think even in the minds of a lot of people who do improvisation, I think if you ask improvisers, how do you define the work that you do? Do you think of yourself as an artist? And they go like, no, I'm just trying to make people laugh. Okay, well, there's a craft to that. There's an art to that. I think even improvisers kind of struggle with that. It's so ephemeral. You have to see it live. That's where it really shines. It doesn't do as well on video. It's hard to make a permanent record. It's hard to have a show reel. It's hard to have, like, if you're in a band, you put out records and say, see, I did that, and then you tour around supporting that record. You can't do a good improv scene and then do that scene for 5 years. You have to go see a group. That group has to have a good show that night. A lot of groups are mediocre to worse, because a lot of people are getting up on stage and trying to learn their craft. They're not fully baked yet, And so people come to see those shows and they go like, oh, I don't like improv. People rarely say, hey, somebody recommended that I go to see a band. I've never seen a band. I don't know what bands are. Like, I've heard of bands, but I don't really know what that is. And now I'm going to go to the Cat's Cradle, watch 30 minutes of a band and say, I don't like rock music because I saw this one band one time and they sucked,
right.
But that's what improv has to deal with. And it's delegitimate, or it's not legitimized by the local media. Like, they won't review improv shows. This has been a known thing for a long time. I'm not sure why that is, but I know that's the case. And you can't study improvisation. You can't go to college and get a degree in improvisation. You can get a degree in acting and directing, all these kinds of things in theater, but there's no subclassification for improvisation. So you can't get, legitimacy from an institution. So people have to come see your shows and say, oh, you're good at this. I know improv. I've seen other shows. I can compare your show to another show. But there's no official, here's my degree from Improv University, or for crying out loud, Northwestern University. It's in Chicago, or NYU that is a great acting school, or Yale, these great acting schools. Where's the great improv school? You can't major in improvisation. And there's something weird about that.
So I want to dig in a little bit to this idea of that you mentioned of being fully baked, of building the skills that you need to become a great improviser.
Right.
What are those skills and how do you build them?
I think the skills are, you should have a good sense of humor. I think a lot of people who stick with improvisation for a long time are also very smart. Not only do you have to be, quick-witted, but if you're doing like long-form improvisation, which people who stay in improv for a long time generally transition at some point to doing long-form improvisation, you've got to kind of have a sense of where the show is, what's happening, what needs to happen. You have to remember what's already happened, and trying to make that piece kind of gel. A lot of that is group dynamics, but like having that understanding of the form and your craft, I think really helps a lot. Certainly it helps to listen. And I feel like a really underrated part of improvisation, you hear this drum beat a lot in the world of improv. I don't know how much it's known outside, is the idea of being a supporting player. So you have somebody who can play very efficiently. I don't need to dominate this scene to make this scene better. I can listen to what you're saying and add stuff to it that is complementary. Or if you're pushing in a certain direction, a lot of times we'll say, I can add more fuel to that fire. And a lot of the instincts that we have to be a good person off stage make for bad improv scenes. Like if somebody's really sad, then you would comfort them in real life like a good friend would do. In improvisation, the instinct is actually the opposite, is you want to fuel their sadness or explain why they're ridiculous for being sad or something like that. So like understanding kind of what a scene needs.
Artist Soapbox is a listener-supported podcast. Please support the podcast via our Patreon page, patreon.com/artistsoapbox. For more information, go to our website, artistsoapbox.org. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. All of this information is in the show notes. Artist Soapbox music is composed by Bart Matthews. Thanks so much, and we're out.